Yeah, so we had State of Play. Overall, it was okay, I guess. They started out talking a lot about the PSVR 2 since that was about to release, I believe, at the time. So yeah, so they went over a couple of games, and most of them look okay. A couple interesting. I think for the most part, Synapse and Before Your Eyes looked like the best games they showed there, in my opinion.
I was really interested in those ones too.
Yeah. So Synapse basically looks like your standard VR first person shooter, but it has a really interesting art style. It's very gray with some very hard, bright colors thrown into it. It has this like mechanic where you can pick up people using a kind of like the Force, basically, which I think looks really cool. The thing about this is that like with VR games, any VR game with a gun is, it's a first person shooter. And it reminds me of like an issue with VR that I have personally, where VR is a controller. I hear a lot of people talking about how VR is like, they see it as like the next big thing, but I disagree with that concept fundamentally because it's just a controller. So all of the games for it are basically first person games, first person shooters. There are some like third person platformers, but I feel like those don't take advantage of the VR's features in a lot of unique ways, except for something like maybe Astrobot Rescue Mission. So in terms of this, it is a basic VR first person shooter with a cool mechanic that probably appears in some other VR games and an interesting art style. It looks cool, but I don't really have that much more interest beyond that, I guess.
It reminds me of Super Hot a little bit, but
visually,
without the interesting mechanic that honestly sold me on VR with Super Hot.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if you take away the art style that this game has, make it look generic, and then you have like almost your basic VR game right there from what I saw. And maybe there's a lot more interesting stuff in the game, I'm not going to discount a game without playing it like that. But those are just my first impressions. The other one, Before Your Eyes, is like a completely different story. And I think, this game came out on Steam. I don't remember how long ago, like a year or two ago. And so it always had this unique mechanic where you're in a location, and I believe you can interact with the environment. I don't know if you just sit down and look around. That might be the case. But every time you blink, it tracks that, and it changes. You get pushed forward through time to different points of the character you're playing as life.
I think that's super cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. So the PSVR 2 can track that now. The PSVR 1 wouldn't have been able to do that.
It's tracking your blinks, and then that's kind of a gameplay feature in and of itself?
Yes.
Oh. That's a mechanic. So the PSVR has a lot of eye tracking stuff mixed, like built into it. So even one of the reasons why it's able to run super well on not low end hardware, like PS5 is nothing to scoff at, but like it's not a super powerful gaming PC, which can really push VR. But one of the ways that they were able to combat that is by rendering everything at a very, very low setting, like kind of blurring everything, except for tracking your eyes where you're looking and then rendering that at really high detail. And apparently it's pretty good. It's pretty quick at like registering how fast you're moving your eyes and where you're moving your eyes to render it pretty quickly. I know other games do similar things, and with other headsets, I think the Index or something does that. But from what I understand, it's way slower than the PSVR 2.
Yeah.
The PSVR 2 is able to do that really, really fast and really effectively. And so it doesn't surprise me that they're tracking your blinks too.
Yeah, that's true, and that's a functionality that all PSVR 2 games can take advantage of now if the developers code it in. So thanks to that, PSVR 2 games have the potential to look a lot more impressive than VR 1 games. in general, I always thought of VR1 games as like more on par with like PS3 level graphics. With
Makes
VR2, I put them more on par with PS4 level graphics from what I've seen, but I haven't experienced it firsthand because I don't have it yet.
And that's actually pretty good because the graphical fidelity between generations is starting to. It's more about performance than it is the graphical.
Yeah.
The way that it looks graphics wise.
Yeah, looking at some of the other games that we're going to get to in a little bit, I almost wonder sometimes if we really needed the PS5 at this point. So that, which is nothing to say negative against the PS5, but like that just goes to show like how powerful the PS4, or at least the PS4 Pro was at like actually pushing out like really beautiful looking things. Like I was just comparing like images of Final Fantasy VII Remake from the PS4 and the PS5. They're not super different. Mainly like the reflections and stuff like that are completely different, but for the most part, it's like it looks like you're looking at the same game.
Yeah. Even beyond that, I did a comparison between God of War 2016 on both the PS4 and the PS5 at the same time on a 1080 TV and a 4K TV right next to each other. On the PS5, it looked almost on par with Ragnarok.
Oh, nice.
Like you could tell it was an older game, but there was a very stark difference next to each other. I think just playing it by itself, it's a lot harder to tell. But yeah, there was a difference.
There is some differences for sure.
Yeah.
And how expensive is? Because I'm looking honestly at some of the VRs that are out there. I was even considering the Quest 2 or whatever is coming after that. How much is the VR 2?
It's $550.
Just the VR 2?
Yeah.
For the VR 2, the controllers,
some headphones I think it comes with, but they kind of suck apparently.
Yeah, the headphones are like like integrated. If you get like the PlayStation Pulse headset, they're designed so that you can wear both at the same time. And that's a lot more immersive. I've done that with the VR one. And then I can't remember if it comes with a camera or if it even needs a camera. It might not.
There is a PlayStation 5 camera.
Yeah.
I'm sure it utilizes it, yeah.
The VR one needed the camera.
Yeah. They also introduced a few other games, the Foglands and Green Hell VR and Journey to Foundation, all of which are releasing later this year. I think it's really cool for releasing a brand new piece of hardware to kind of prove that there are a lot of really interesting games coming out. Synapse also really interested me, and so did Before Your Eyes. Journey to Foundation really interested me too, actually. But for some games that might be interesting to one person, but not necessarily the other, it's really good to show a wide variety of brand new games that are launching the same year as this hardware.
Yes, I forget how many releases there were. I believe there were something like 30 to 40 launch titles for the VR2.
And does that include PSVR games, PSVR 1 games?
They're not backwards compatible.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
It sounded bad at first to me, but I kind of predicted it because the hardware in the PSVR 2 is like almost completely different from the hardware in the PSVR 1. And a lot of it is because of the VR 1 was basically it uses the PS Move controllers.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and they're no different from when they were during the PS3 era.
Right.
Which, let me just say, I think is like one of the most impressive product turnarounds I've ever seen in game industry history, in my opinion. Because the Move was complete failure, and then Sony turned it into a success. So,
yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
that's cool. There was also some other games aside from the PSVR stuff. Destiny 2 Lightfall, which I've been trying my hardest not to look at because I get too sucked into Destiny, and I just can't get into that again. Chia looked pretty cool. I think that's how you pronounced it. It's a game based on a small little island near Antarctica, kind of going over some of the culture and some of the mythology and religion there, which I think is super cool, of the Kanak people there in New Caledonia. I think that's how you pronounced it. That's coming out, I think, later this month, actually, March 21st. And Humanity. I don't know how many people were super interested in this. I played the demo because the demo launched later the same day, and I kind of loved it. It's kind of like Lemmings in a weird kind of way, very puzzle based. It's made from the same people as Tetris Effect, which I think is super cool, and is just generally seems like they're doing a lot of like really good pro consumer type things, like building level creators and stuff like that too, which is super cool to see. I personally was super interested in that one.
The character in Chia looks like a character you'd see in RuneScape when you're up close, like, and they're talking in their little boxes.
So the art,
that's kind of what I see. I'm not saying that's bad. I love RuneScape, but I just made note of that when watching it. Like, that kind of looks like a RuneScape character.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think that some of the visuals are really cool, if maybe it's not technically as visually impressive. I still thought it was pretty cool. So I just am super interested in those kind of games and kind of showcasing a lot of culture that in some places is really disappearing. Like Chia, very few people actually live on that island anymore. Most of them are French because it's a French territory now. Mm-hmm. So to kind of show the last remnants of that culture to like through video games, I think is super cool.
I can appreciate the care that it goes into these other cultures and the games that they can represent.
Exactly, yeah. I am kind of extremely excited for Naruto Cross Boruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Connections, which is a title.
That's quite a title.
It's the idea is that they're combining every game, I think, in the Ultimate Ninja Storm series and connecting all of the stories into like one cohesive story, including some of the Boruto stuff. And it looked like every character from previous games too, all in one game, which is super cool. I don't know how many people play the Ultimate Ninja Storm games or just the Shonen Jump games in general. For the most part, they're all kind of samey. I feel like they haven't updated their engine since the first Ultimate Ninja Storm, but they're super fun. It's really solid, really fluid gameplay, and you get to run around as ninjas and actually make you feel like you're playing as those characters.
See, I played most of the Naruto games around the PS2 GameCube era, and I mean like most of those games. I'm looking at how they're kind of handling, not necessarily handling, but the gameplay for this game, and it kind of reminds me of that. I love the 3D fighting genre. Games like Tenkaichi or Clash of Ninja, and also I just love the Naruto story. So I think maybe I'd give this one a go if it comes out. I know this is a state of play, but I play mostly PC, so I hope that.
Right.
I don't know if they confirmed it or not, but I'd play it on PC.
Yeah, for sure. I know my girlfriend is super interested in the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm games. She's played like most of them. And I know that we're both just super excited about that one. And you recently just binged watched all of Naruto. So I don't know if you want to play with us too. We can get into like the meta or something like
that. My favorite character is Zabuza, which is weird because it's like right at the beginning, but he was still my favorite the whole way through.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's super cool. And yeah, the Water Village guy, right? I thought it was something his sword was super cool.
Mm-hmm. They still use it even in Boruto. They claimed that sword again.
Oh, okay. To get to Street Fighter, I'm not much of a fighting game person. Brad, I know that you're super excited for this one.
I am extremely excited for this one. For one, I've been a Street Fighter fan since I was a kid. I played that one with my dad. Street Fighter 2 New Challengers, or World Challenger. Number 6 is coming out. It's looking fresh. It's looking nice. They announced not Chun-Li. Cammy and Zangief, as well as I think Lily, but I don't care too much about her. But Cammy's looking nice. That's in more ways than one, but I'll leave that one to imagination.
Yeah, he does look good.
I'm a big Street Fighter fan. I have another friend, Mike. He's a big Tekken fan, so we go back and forth between those two games. And this year is looking like a pretty hefty year for fighting games.
So I'm not much of a Street Fighter person, but I do like the way that they're handling the story with this one. So that you get to like walk around in like a 3D like environment and actually walking along the streets, and you actually looks like you're doing more street fighting. Whereas I think some of the previous games it looked like kind of lost the plot there, but in this you're actually literally fighting in the streets again, which I think is super cool.
So It's really weird because the way that it looks, it kind of reminds me of, and Gerardo, you're going to have to tell me this game. It reminds me of a Mortal Kombat game, an older one.
Yeah, that's Mortal Kombat Deception. That's the
I
6th game.
You knew immediately.
I knew you would know. So it reminded me of kind of like that, and I always appreciate a game that kind of brings me into the world and crafts that world building. So
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
the single player in Mortal Kombat Deception, their adventure mode, is probably one of the best like story modes in like fighting game history.
That's good to hear because fighting
Yeah.
games don't normally have the best story modes outside of the what if ending in an arcade mode that you get for each character.
Yeah, that's true. So I think I'm really glad to see Street Fighter going for this, and I hope that it works out really well.
So Street Fighter V kind of did that, where they have an overarching kind of story. As you go about it, it's just a little harder to get into it. It's there's a lot of quote unquote DLC characters that everybody's technically free, but you have to play an obscene amount of gameplay in order to actually unlock it without actually just shelling out money. So I'm hoping they're not too aggressive this go around with Street Fighter 6. I don't know if they dropped any information on that, but I really hope they don't expect me to play 1,000 hours to unlock one character. It's a very EA way of doing business.
Well, you don't have to play 1,000 hours. You could just pay for it.
Well, that's what I don't want to do. I already paid the $60, or have they jumped up to $70 now? I've been
It's
seeing
like
that.
$70-$80 now or something.
Oh god.
It's PS5 games.
Well, shucks. Maybe I will have to start shelling out that.
Don't do it.
Well, speaking of Capcom games, did you guys see the Resident Evil 4 trailer?
Yep.
Yeah?
Back in
Also
like
am not a huge
2005.
Resident Evil friend.
Back in 2000. Oh. Well, did you see
Whenever
the
it came out
updated
originally.
trailer?
No.
Well, to be fair, they've been doing a lot of remakes of these old games, and Resident Evil 4 is next on the chopping block. But
Yeah.
unlike some of those other games that really needed it, I think one of the last episodes, this comes from the GameCube and PlayStation era of games, so it's more about getting that graphical fidelity up. And yeah, they're bringing it up from the ground up. But man, Resident Evil 4 was such a great game, even to this day. But
Yeah. I actually have pretty fond memories of this game because it's one of the few that I played with you, if
Mm.
memory serves.
Wait, I know we did play it. Did we play it all the way through though?
We might have. I don't think I remember seeing the end, but we did play like a decent amount of it, and
Mhm.
yeah, I like Leon.
Leon is, I think, the best Resident Evil representative. Sorry, Chris, Jill, Claire, all these other ones, but I'm looking forward to playing as the smooth talking and jokester that is Leon. There wasn't really much of that in Resident Evil 6, but we don't talk about that one. If they remake that one, I hope they entirely remake that one.
That's what I'm hoping for Dead Space 3.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they're doing one. And there's a big resurgence in these older horror games. I know Resident Evil 2 is, at least right now, I think it's my favorite, if not the best in the series. But before that was Resident Evil 4. So if they can capture the spark of Resident Evil 4, but also deliver something gameplay experience-wise that Resident Evil 2 gave me, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I think that might be game of the year. It's fantastic. Hunter, you need to play that one.
I haven't played through any of the Resident Evil games. I know so
Well,
little about the franchise.
If you play any of them, play 4.
Okay, good to know.
I was gonna say they're also bringing back the Mercenaries, which is a big fan favorite as well. Think of it kind of like like Nazi zombies and or like horde mode, where it's just waves of monsters. It's kind of like one of the original games to do that.
That's coming out in just a few weeks too.
I know. I still need to play and beat 8. I'm almost done with 8, but once we finish 8 at my house, we'll move on to 4. Can't wait.
Okay, so they also announced a couple of other games. I forget, did we talk about Goodbye Volcano High?
No.
Okay. I mean, if you're into Scalies, there's a Goodbye Volcano High. That's coming in June. Baldur's Gate 3, which I'm kind of excited for. I played 2. I didn't beat it. I didn't get all the way through, but I remember enjoying it when I was little. Wayfinder is like this MMO type deal. They're doing a beta right now, I think, or at least maybe close or something by the time that this episode goes live. And also, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, coming out May 26th.
Now, Gerardo, what are your raw thoughts about that game?
Go for it.
That game could have been something really great, and it's getting beaten down so hard with the online model with the battle pass and the gear sets. Yeah, they announced a battle pass for the game, and you have to be always online to play it, even though they say you can play through the game by yourself, which that is at least cool. So I'm interested in seeing the story because I really love Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. I haven't played the other ones, and especially because this is going to be Kevin Conroy's last appearance as Batman. So yeah, in terms of the gameplay itself, from what they showed, I will say I was disappointed in certain aspects of it. Like, I think all 4 of the characters kind of look like they play pretty much the same. Like, there are some differences, but it's like, if I was going to play as King Shark, I feel like I wouldn't expect to be using a gun on enemies. And, if I'm playing Captain Boomerang, I expect to be using boomerangs and not assault rifles.
That's a fair assumption.
Yeah.
I did see they did something kind of cool where he has like a boomerang that's infused with the Flash's speed force, so he can move really fast. And I think that's a cool concept in general. But again, yeah, all the characters kind of look like they play a little too similarly. So it looks overall kind of disappointing.